foremost for the wonderful place in which we live, the freedoms that we enjoy, and the wonderful people that serve and the citizens of this great town. We are thankful to live here. We're thankful to serve here and to enjoy the things that we do that we realize are from thee. We ask for thee to watch over these proceedings. They might be civil, they might be in pleasing unto thee and to the citizens of Provo. We ask for these things humbly in Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
All right, we will start with roll call on the far left with Mr. Smith, please.
Brian Smith, no conflicts.
Maria Winden, no conflicts.
Robert Knudsen, no conflict.
Dave Anderson, no conflict.
Russell Phillips, no conflict.
Deborah Jensen, no conflicts.
Jamin Rowan, no conflict.
Andrew Howard, no conflicts.
Shannon Ellsworth, no conflict.
Thank you, commissioners. All right, we will read the first item in for the evening then. Item 1, Design Build Contractors, Inc. requests project plan approval for a new residential building within the campus of the Heritage School located at 5600 North Heritage School Drive in the Public Facilities PF Zone. The new building will take the place of a previously demolished building. This is in the River Bottoms neighborhood, and Mr. Mills will present item 1.
Thank you very much. Commissioners, I just wanted to start off this item by saying customarily this item, because of its nature and its location and its receptiveness to the community, would customarily go to an administrative hearing rather than to the full Planning Commission. But because of timing issues, we didn't want to slow the applicant up to make them wait for the next one. So we wanted you all to hear this tonight. So I'll just go through a couple slides and then answer any questions that you have. So the Heritage School is an existing behavioral school. Performs a great service here in our community. Up on 5600 North, near the mouth of Provo Canyon, has been there for many years. And this application is to replace an existing building with the same purpose and same functions to help in their residential program there. Site plan for the proposed structure. You can see that this building will be used for residential and classroom space, primarily for youth boys. And so this is the location where a previous building has already been demolished to make room for this new one. Landscape plan for this building. This is a rendering of how the architects feel that it will look. It has definitely kind of has a woodsy feel to it that matches the rest of the architecture on the site. These are the elevations for the proposed structure. You'll notice that on the west elevation, this one down here, there are limited windows, and that is more for the safety and the way that the building is going to function with the rest of the students on the site. I hope you all have been very good this year.
He's watching.
He's watching you. So this application has actually gone to design review committee, and the one comment that the design review committee made was that if the applicant could take another look at that just to see if it could be designed in any way to allow windows and light to be on that side, so in as much as it doesn't harm or get in the way of the programmatic goals of this building. Oh, I should have a lot more pictures. That's okay. We were able to review this application. As I mentioned, the site has been the home of this school for a number of years, and felt that this replacement building would have no impact on surrounding uses. The neighborhood chair was able to attend design review committee and didn't have any concerns, hasn't been notified of any concerns. So staff recommended that the Planning Commission approve this project plan with the following conditions. Number one, that all CRC comments are adequately resolved prior to building permit approval. And number two, that the suggestions made by the Design Review Committee be evaluated and implemented to the extent feasibly possible while still maintaining the programmatic and residential standards for the proposed project. And I'm available for any questions if you have any.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions for Mr. Mills? Okay, seeing none, I will invite the applicant to come forward and present his project. And please state your name for the record.
I'm Craig Bennett with Design Build Contractors. I'm the owner of the company. We've built numerous buildings down there for the last 20 years, really. And Mr. Mills here presented this very well. The only thing I might add to that is the suggestion where there's no windows on that one rendering is because it backs up to a girls' dormitory, and this is for boys. And one other thing that the professional team, this is for autistic kids mostly, and most autistic boys. There'll be maybe upwards of 10 autistic boys there at a time, and they're the professionals. They're going to analyze but at first we didn't put windows on that side because of the bright lights affect autism, and so they're looking at that and see if we can dress that up with landscaping and what windows. Maybe we put the windows up higher so that, but we're excited about this project. There's funds are a lot of donated funds from Vivint and other sources that it's all paid for and ready to go. So we appreciate you considering this, and appreciate being here tonight. Any
Great.
questions that I might be able to answer?
Commissioners, any questions for Mr. Bennett? All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, I will open up this item to public input. Is the neighborhood chair for River Bottoms present?
I'm Dave Rosen. I'm the neighborhood chair of the River Bottoms, and I did attend the design review, and following that review, I made a decision that we did not need a neighborhood meeting, given the nature of the project, that it's a replacement. The footprint is a little bit bigger than the existing one. However, I did poll our 450 residents and received a whopping 2 responses, both in the affirmative. I think that signals that most of the people who generally would respond to this were very active and pleased with what they saw and had no concerns. And so as a neighborhood, we do not have any concerns with the development that's planned there. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Are there any other neighborhood chairs present who would like to speak to item 1? Are there any members of the public who would like to speak to item 1? Okay, seeing none, I will turn it back over to the commissioners for discussion and or motion. Yes.
Madam Chair, the 2 points that he made about the windows in the back, those seem to be pretty practical reasons for not having windows. I was just wondering, Mr. Mills, when this would go back to the review committee, design review committee?
It doesn't need to. Those were just suggestions rather than the DRC gave full approval, just suggestions for evaluation to see if that would be possible.
Okay, thank you.
I would also just make one more note that one of the reasons why this normally would have gone to an administrative hearing rather than to the full planning commission is that there's no increase in capacity for the school. This is just a replacement building. Even though it's larger, it's not facilitating additional students or staff.
Thank you.
I'm prepared to make a motion.
Mr. Rowan?
I move that we recommend approval of the requested project plan for a new residential building within the campus of the Heritage School, located at 5600 North Heritage School Drive in the Public Facilities Zone, and include in that motion the following conditions, or the conditions that are articulated in the staff report, that all CRC comments are adequately resolved prior to building permit approval, and that the suggestions made by the DRC be evaluated and implemented to the extent feasibly possible while still maintaining the programmatic and residential standards for the proposed project.
Thank you, Mr. Rowan. Do we have a second to Mr. Rowan's motion?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Ms. Ellsworth. All those in favor of approval of item 1?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, item 1 is approved, and that was a unanimous vote of approval. Right, item 2, Ben Davis requests project plan approval for an office building and associated parking structure located at 182 North Freedom Boulevard in the downtown core D22 zone. This affects the downtown neighborhood, and Mr. Maxfield, will present this item.
Thank you. Not all of you recall, but this was on your last agenda. And I'll run through some things. If there are things that you have questions on, we can certainly try and answer those if you want to familiarize yourself with that. But basically what I want to cover more specifically are the changes that have been made or the things in response to what you asked and also what the DRC committee asked for. The applicant, they went back to the DRC committee last Thursday and did receive approval. We'll show the differences that DRC felt adequately addressed their previous concerns. Again, to orient you, I'm trying to think of the thing. Anyway, it's the south side of 200 North between Freedom Boulevard and 100 West, that north side of the block. And just so you have an idea of where that is, the old Sears building or R.C. Willey, whatever area you're from, was there on that side. This was the rendering we looked at before, and I've got another one. I'll show you some of the differences in that architectural style. But this is looking south, this is looking east. The subject building is the one on the right. The one on the left is the north area builds out where they kind of mirror that building. But the one we're looking at tonight is the one on that right side or the south side of the block. This one shows the view looking south with the parking garage on the right and the office building on the left. Again, that'd be west to the right and east to the left. And then here's a comparison to show you the difference in the brick. And the applicant can maybe address this more, but you'll notice there's some darker bands pulled in, so it gives more distinctive colors. And I'm hoping that shows up on your computer a little bit. But,
Can you point with the?
Yeah. Oh, here it is. I'm sorry. I was looking for it. If you look at the columns and the banding on those, or the colors on the brick, that's a little bit darker through there. So it gives a different color than the rest of the building. So it kind of adds an additional color into the building. And then this shows the same on the parking garage, just maybe a little more distinctive. We can see the darker on the right and the lighter on the left. And especially down on the lower areas above the plinth. I get that right from what we talked about before. But anyway, you can see the darker part on those the columns. And again, this is, I'm not sure, I tried to put some of these slides in from what we had before. Oh, okay. This does show the new rendering where they looked at this beige color, the browns, and then they also looked at a gray version. You know, and the DRC felt that they'd rather stay with the beige version than the gray. This shows the previous layout, and particularly the points we're looking at on this is this plaza area. And then also there's a slight change over here on the retail with the steps in that area. This shows the new rendering, which kind of revised that plaza because it cuts off the alley. We talked about that at the last meeting. And so this shows that it wouldn't be a through area. You'd have a lot better flow back and forth through that area. There's some question because of structures here, could that still have emergency access, and we'll have to work that on the details. But if you can see where you had a landscaping block that was oriented toward the building and left that open because of the drive, compared to now where it kind of closes in the plaza a little bit with landscaping features. This shows a little bit of the detail. I apologize, I couldn't quite get the exact duplicate, but it was showing a little bit of the detail on the left that I mentioned earlier, where you had the steps coming down, where now it's a railing, just because of the change in the elevations there. And the applicant can maybe talk about that a little more. There's some slight modifications, but nothing really extensive through this parking garage. The other one was the office building. This was definitely a point of discussion we had at the last meeting, where the one on the left was the previous plan, the one on the right's the change. You can see the doorway that now goes out to 100 West. There's also a change in this area, the bike storage, which was up in the center east portion of the previous layout, now is at the bottom. And bike storage is there with a small exercise area, so you create a place where the cyclist can shower and have some kind of a ready room or something that way. This one shows the changes in the elevations, and specifically the bottom one, where you can see how that looked before without the doorway, and this shows the doorway. That doorway, the steps go in because the street elevation drops through that area, or they go up. We'll have you address that. But anyway, there's a change in elevation there. So if you look back on that other drawing, that's why there's stairs there, because the street's a different elevation than the other. This one, again, just shows some of the detail we showed last time. I think this is the darker one, shows the street view, different things that way. And any other items we have, was happy to talk about those, but any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Maxfield. Any questions for Mr. Maxfield? I have one. On the site plan that you just showed with the corner of the office building, the southwest corner of the office building, where those stairs are in the public way, is that acceptable because of ADA standards?
Let's see where.
The lower left corner of the office building.
Down in here.
Now, those are stairs in the sidewalk,
Yeah, there's
correct?
stairs right here next to that door. The door swings out and goes to the base of the steps right there. Let's see. That shows a little bit more right in there. I don't know how to answer that question. I apologize, but certainly have to look that up.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Maxfield? Ms. Ellsworth.
In your opinion, does this improve walkability?
I think it definitely does up on 200 North and as well as 100 West. I'm skipping around here, but 200 North without the street extending through, it really allows a lot better flow and not having that what moat, I guess you have to cross to get over to the other side. And then on 100 West, I think the biggest thing there, that if there's a viable retail user, you've got that frontage along 100 West that can open up to that area where before I think they would have been closed off. 100 West, I think right now the viability may, again, for retail service may be limited because we don't have the residential mass down there yet. But as the area grows, I think that could become more available, and certainly the space remains flexible that you could change it and orient it that way. You have on-street parking along 100 West that you don't have on Freedom. You have some other things that we've tried to extend 100 West, especially as we go further south through the city. 100 West is a lot more emphasized in its storefronts and things that way. So I think it'll kind of help bring that up through that area and at least allow for that to occur.
Do you know what the span is between the new door on 100 West and the existing door? Do you know the space between those?
Between here and between those two? Yeah, if we can have the applicant address that. It looks like there are 2 columns off, so there's probably a way to calculate that out.
I guess I have one last question concerning the retail and the parking deck at street level. Does Freedom Boulevard, is it not a requirement to have the Freedom Boulevard elevation also have retail? It turns the corner, there's a little bit, but most of that elevation is, looks like egress stairs and the drive entry.
Yeah, there was a need to have a drive entry somewhere in there off Freedom, and so that was kind of how far you could bring the retail down. Freedom does not have as much retail exposure as you go down because of the court building and some of the others. It's kind of been broken as it is. This one wraps around to this point here where you have doors and the elevator and opening up. And I think the one thing we try to do is, and the applicant can address this also, but we talked about that last time a little bit with that clear vision as you come out of that parking garage, being able to see through that portion of it. So it'd been hard to wrap some retail down and make the parking garage totally function that way without pulling a big angle of the building back to open that up. I don't know if that's the total reason, but maybe we can have the applicant address something more on that.
Thank you. Any other questions for staff? All right, seeing none, I will invite the applicant up to present his project.
Hello. I think Brian did a good job presenting that, and I'll add a little more to the question, Madam Chair, that you had about the commercial space right here. So currently what we're showing is bike storage and motorcycle parking. We work closely with engineering. We originally had the ingress egress kind of in this area, which would have facilitated possibly some retail down in this corner. Working with engineering staff, it was determined is in the best interest of the project and safety to push that as far south as we can. That's why it's down here in this corner. Further discussion with engineering, there is a requirement for this sight distance triangle where you have to have the clear vision 12.5 feet in this east-west direction and then 25 feet in this north-south direction. If you go to and that's why we didn't put retail there. In addition to creating a viable space, I think we have 20 feet by 30 feet. Feasibly, you could, if there wasn't that sight distance triangle, you could have something there, but working with engineering, they are saying that we need to keep that open. And so the way we've addressed that, Brian, if you want to skim over to the elevation of that west facade. I think it think you passed it. Go back one more, I think. Yeah, right here. No, that's the office. Did we have the elevation of the garage in there? Okay, we didn't. Okay, so what we did, I'll just try and explain it. What we did is on the upper levels of the garage, if you recall from last time or from the renderings, we have these aluminum mullions that, you know, create the look of glass, of windows. So we've extended all that down to the street level. We've continued that base element that we have around the perimeter of the parking garage. So that's all extended, you know, through this whole face, whereas previously it wasn't. So talking with planning staff and with engineering, they felt that was the best way to address that, understanding the sight distance triangle constraint that we're faced with right here. So does that help answer your question or concern?
It does. However, I'm sorry that engineering told you to move the drive as far south as possible, because I would see that as a real impediment to the users of the deck. People who are parking in this deck are either going to the office building, or they're probably headed downtown, maybe to the convention center or the retail district, and they're going to have to cross the active lanes going in and out of that drive, where if that drive was located further north and the pedestrian access was below that.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that would have been a better site solution, quite honestly. That's my opinion.
Okay.
So I think you're going to have, if you think about the convention center, has some pretty big events, and you see a lot of people walking up and down Freedom. And if you have all of them trying to get in and out of that garage at the same time, while people are also trying to get to the pedestrian entrance or leave, you're going to have a big conflict there.
Yeah, certainly the majority, it's probably the vast majority will come down this stair tower here. There's also, you could come down the stair tower on this side, if you parked on this side of the structure, and there is a stairwell here on the main level, and then this walkway as well. So there is an alternate there, if that helps. So there are two ways feasibly to get there. So I definitely understand what you're saying, though. Yeah.
Any questions for the applicant from the commissioners? Ms. Ellsworth?
With that new door on 100 West, what was the span from door to door?
You know, I don't have the exact number. I believe we're within 50 feet of the requirement. So,
I'm just trying to see if you can read the distance between the
Are they 30-foot column
measurements
bays?
there. Oh, yeah, if you can focus in and read that, trying to.
Yeah, it's too small.
We're gonna hurt some eyes here. Let me see if it's on one of the other drawings. Is there? They should be equal to the ones in the parking garage, so I was trying to see if there's one on that one on the right. Oh, I think that's our best chance, was this one on the right.
Do you know how far apart the window bays are, or the columns, and then we could multiply it?
I think 30 feet is pretty typical for office.
Okay.
Yes.
1, 2, 3, 4. So 120 feet, maybe? Is that what?
Column bay. Structural columns are usually That's pretty ballpark,
There's
30
four
feet.
of them. It's 30 times 4, 120.
I think you're looking at about 45, maybe 50 feet.
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe I'm counting. Yeah, I must be counting the wrong thing. Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant? I have one more question.
Sure.
Concerns vertical circulation in the parking deck. And I'm sorry we don't have the elevation of Freedom, because that would be helpful and may answer my question. If you could put that slide up, please. Oh, great, thank you. The vertical circulation along Freedom and also the plaza that's created between the parking deck and the office building, those both look like they're not very evident from the exterior of the building. Are they treated as an architectural element? In other words, you know, a glazed enclosure that clearly signifies this is the entrance, this is where pedestrians go to access the structure. Because I think those things could help animate both the Freedom elevation and also that plaza, help to activate that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the staircases aren't enclosed. They do have the mullions. We're looking at signage. You know, we have a signage package together. We've been working with Yesco to look at what the signage could be, using the city branding, kind of the blue, the P with the blue and yellow, to signify, okay, this is where you park. Obviously, that's important to us. It's important to the convention center. It's important to the city. So that's certainly a big part of it. Yeah. So.
And it's shown here on the.
This
the
is
top.
not. Yeah. So this is not enclosed here.
So it's not glazed.
Correct.
Why is that? I would think you'd want to protect exposed stairs from the weather, especially, you know, icy conditions and whatnot.
The main reason behind that was, frankly, it's cost. I know that's not probably not too favorable of a reason, but really it came down to that, because once you enclose those, there's, you know, HVAC costs and different things like that, and that was the main reason, quite frankly. So.
Just seems like it would be a safety hazard. Right, any other questions for the applicant? All right, thank you very much. All right, I'll open this up to public comment. Do we have the downtown neighborhood chair present? Are there any other neighborhood chairs present who would like to speak to this item? Are there any members of the public who would like to speak to this item? All right, seeing none, I'll turn this back over to the commissioners for further discussion and a motion, and we will be approving or disapproving this item. Mr. Anderson.
Just a quick question for Mr. Maxfield. We talked about a couple of ways in the last meeting. I can't even remember exactly what they were, that the proposal then did not meet the city standards. In staff's view, does the proposal, the way we're looking at it tonight, meet all of the city's requirements?
Yes, with the addition of the entry on 100 West, the applicant's response to some of the minimal window, I think it was along Freedom Boulevard, and there was one other thing, but yes, they now meet those requirements. I'm sorry, I have to think of it. But those two specifically, I think we talked about, the last one. I'll look through.
Okay.
But we went down the list and felt that it does meet it now.
Thank you.
Yes.
Madam Chair, I wasn't here last time, so you may have answered this question already. At its maximum usage, when the convention center is being used, when MTech is full, how many parking spaces do you expect would be utilized all at one time in the parking garage?
Well, there's over 700 spaces in the parking garage, so
Right.
on a busy day, they'll mostly all be used, but that's for several buildings and several uses beyond the ones you mentioned, but they'll be largely used.
Yeah, there are some spaces the Hyatt Hotel has, then the office building would have spaces as well as the convention center.
And the MTech.
Okay. But it's expected to be able to encompass all of those users? Thank you.
Comments, discussion?
The third item was along 200 North was a setback thing with the planters and things, and that was adjusted and made so. It came to me.
I wasn't here last time to hear this. You asked a question about the stairway, and maybe we have to have him back. Is that open then?
It's not enclosed.
Does it present a safety hazard? Do people fall out of those stairs? I mean, I can see it from a security point that it's good to have it open. You can see people moving, but is it caged in? Is that the idea?
This drawing.
Okay.
The elevation here shows where one of the stairwells is. This is the one on 200 North, but that's what it would be like.
I see.
So you do have the railings and the other features that are throughout the parking lot would extend to that area.
Thank you.
I just think it's a missed opportunity not to require that vertical circulation to be enclosed from the weather, especially since there's such a civic use for this parking deck intended. That's my opinion. However, it doesn't have any bearing on the site plan approval, so. Ms. Ellsworth?
Is this picture from last week, or the last meeting, or from this meeting?
I think this is the last week's. It looks too light on the color. Let me. I apologize. Oh, I get the problem. We're on the last. Can we go back to? We're back in the November slides. Yeah, the one on the right is the new one. You can see the darker color down there.
I think that looks better, but I still think it looks like it came out of Lehigh.
I don't know if I have anything new to say. I still really dislike the project, but it meets our current downtown standards. I mean, I think it looks, well, all the things I said last time. This is a real shame to me for this to be going in at a prime spot downtown, and the city's had a chance to ask for a lot better and to demand a lot better. I mean, the parking structure looks terrible to me. The facade looks terrible to me. It does look better when it's less yellow. I agree with that. And I hope that the standards that we discussed tonight in our pre-meeting will help prevent something like this. It looks, I know it was a response it was something said in response specifically to your question, Madam Chair, about why didn't you enclose that? Cost. I mean, everything about this building screams cheap. We've done this to maximize profits as much as we can, and it just, we better do better than this for the city buildings that we're remodeling. I mean, it would be terrible if we got something like this to replace this, in my mind. I have to pass it in a way, but I'm not happy at all. And I think to suggest that everybody else was happy was really misleading. Again, given discussions on Facebook recently with images of the building, I don't know that the neighborhood is pumped about this like it was suggested last week. Prominent residents from the neighborhood seem to be not happy with it. So, I wish it would be better. I wish it would be a lot better.
Yeah. I would agree with that.
And it seems to happen a lot with PEG, to be honest.
Did you have a comment? Mr. Anderson?
Yeah, I don't see any basis for us not acting to approve this tonight. I'm curious, though, and I don't know if the planning staff knows, relative to like tax increment or RDA assistance, anything like that, any feel for whether or not the city's participating in this development and maybe to what extent the city is financially?
We're definitely participating. We sold the ground. So Bill has more info on that.
I don't have any idea to the extent the city's participating, but.
There's some, though. There's some.
Sure. Yeah. And a lot of that is because of our obligation to the county to provide 350 parking spaces for the convention center.
Yeah, so to some extent, I'd say maybe this is the result of some previous decisions that have been made, and we're living with that now.
Right. PEG has been in the middle of a litigation between the city and the county over those parking spaces.
I mean, this is just commentary and it's just my opinion, but I think it's a little bit ironic that something that looks like this is going here and we're paying for it, at least in part. So just in part, we're paying for it.
It architecturally does not even suit the downtown.
Not even close.
It's not high quality materials. It's disappointing.
It would seem to me, I don't know the whole history. It just seems to me that, this is certainly not something the planning staff, would have, from the outset said, this is what we want this thing to look like. So I don't know at what level decisions got made and approved, and I'd have to imagine that it happened in a way before it got to the planning staff, and again, all the more reason for much more robust, downtown guidelines like we talked about tonight. I mean, this wouldn't get built under the discussions that we were talking about tonight, and it would be great if if we could go back. I wish that PEG had more integrity than to put up something like this downtown. I really do. But it seems that cost matters and much more, and this just feels really tragic to me, really tragic.
Ms. Winden?
I think this is just an example of where all the T's are crossed and I's are dotted, and so, we're kind of obligated to approve the plan, but it sounds like the majority aren't really happy with it, but we have no recourse.
Would we see this in Salt Lake? No way. No way would we see this there.
Mr. Anderson?
Maybe not Ogden, downtown Ogden at this point. So it is what it is. And I'm ready to make a motion. I move that the Planning Commission approve, for item number 2, the project plan for the office building and associated parking structure located at 182 North Freedom Boulevard in the downtown core DT2 zone, simply subject to the requirements of the code and the conditions of the coordinators review committee.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Do we have a second to Mr. Anderson's motion to approve item 2 as stated?
I'll approve it. Second.
Seconded by Mr. Howard. All those in favor of approval of item 2?
Aye.
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 Those opposed? Right, so item 2 is approved, and that was unanimous. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Meeting adjourned.